We'll go ahead and call to order the City Council meeting on Monday, March 9th, 2026. The time is 6:08 p.m. The first item on our agenda is a motion to adopt our agenda as amended on Civic Clerk. The proposed amendment is to move what was consent agenda item 4.2 to our deliberative agenda as item 5.4. Is there a motion to adopt our agenda as amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Schachter. Is there a second? Thank you, Councillor Bergman. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, then please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Public forum is set for a time certain at 6:30 p.m. That is the next item on our agenda, but as it's only 6:10, we will need to move to item 3 on our agenda, and then we'll double back to the public forum after item 3. And Mayor, that is you, General City Affairs.
Great. Thank you, President Travers. I appreciate it. Good evening to the council and to folks at home and the folks who are here for our council meeting tonight. I want to share a few different updates and start first with our town meeting day results on a number of ballot items related, and also speak later on community safety and some community engagement points. So first to town meeting day, I'd like to reflect on the encouraging ballot results that we had on last Tuesday. Burlington voters sent a clear message that they support responsible investments in city services, strong equity and inclusion work, and a steady and thoughtful progress that we are doing here at City Hall. Over 70% of voters approved the 5-cent police and fire tax increase on Tuesday. This will go to fund negotiated salaries and benefits with our two first responder unions, BPOA and BFFA, including 2 new firefighter positions that will be realized in the course of this contract, and 6 first responder vehicles, a step towards maintaining the essential services while also balancing our budget. This budget solution is a critical one because it will raise $3 million towards our current projected $10 to $12 million budget gap. And it is my commitment as mayor to present a balanced approach that is not all on a tax increase and not all on cuts and not all on hopes and dreams, that we can find additional resources. And if someone has a hope and dream out there that's tangible, I would love to know. This is a hard budget process, but this is such a critical piece of it, and I really thank voters, first of all, on this particular question. We also received 57% of voter approval on our charter change to permanently establish the city's Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Office, otherwise known as REIB. This is also a critically important expression of support, especially in these times, as we know in Burlington that we must strengthen our ability to advance equity across departments and engage this community. It sends the most important message to our folks who hold marginalized identities that Burlington is a town that stands up for its values and really sets a different course than what's been established on the federal level. All of these outcomes these 2 outcomes reflect years of careful policy development, coalition building, community engagement, and showing that Burlington values both safety and social and racial justice. Burlington voters also supported improved our school budget and also a compensation, a stipend for our hardworking school board members. So thank you again for the investment in our critical partners of the school district. Town Meeting Day demonstrates the power of local democracy. It's one of my favorite holidays of the year in Vermont, and we are so grateful to the voters for partnering with us to build a safer, more equitable, and financially resilient city. I also would like to extend my appreciation to our city staff for facilitating very strong public engagement and helping us get over the finish line on Town Meeting Day. And that thanks extends to the CAO, Catherine Schad, RIB Director, Dr. Kelly Perkins, and her team, Christian Berry, Katie Green, and Vicki Lusano, and then also, of course, our city attorney team and our MPA public engagement specialist who had some additional assignments around Town Meeting Day this year, Barbara Turnbull. And lastly, of course, our elections team who works diligently, 15-hour plus a day and all the hours leading up to it, led by our very capable Sarah Montgomery, who leads our elections division. On to community safety. At my monthly press conference in February, I shared some exciting progress we've been seeing on the community safety front. Community safety is more than just one program or department. It includes prevention, intervention, enforcement, accountability, and recovery. Over the past year, we've been building a full toolbox to address safety in a coordinated, data-informed, and collaborative way. And across Burlington, we're really starting to see the results. At that press conference, which you can see on Town Meeting Today TV in its entirety, violent crime in Burlington is down to levels that we have not seen since 2021. This is when we look back over the course of 2025. This in particular includes homicides, which have decreased. In 2025, our police officers, our community safety officers, and CAPE staff responded to nearly 35,000 instances across the city. And at first, this looks like a significant increase that might be concerning, but what it actually reflects is an increase in police foot patrols, especially in the downtown, which we started in late spring of last year. This has improved our community presence downtown and engagement. And anytime someone engages a police officer, it counts in that count overall for incidences. Behavioral health and welfare check calls are now primarily handled by our community support liaisons, or CSLs, and our Howard Street outreach teams. And this reflects new policy as under Chief Burke's leadership that we put in place last fall to clarify who responds to a call and making sure the use of CSLs is consistent and embedded within the larger community safety response. Our fire department responded to 11,533 incidences in 2025, making it the busiest year in the department's 130-year history. The majority of these incidences were medical emergency calls, showing how much community safety depends on a capable medical response. Our firefighters and paramedics also completed over 16,000 hours of training in 2025 to ensure readiness for emerging risks. Since launching in July of 2025, the Situation Table has addressed 50 high-risk situations involving individuals or families. Just to remind folks, the Situation Table, we're one of about 8 or 9 communities now in Vermont and many more across the country who utilize this strategy to identify high-risk individuals and then work relentlessly with community partners to bring the risk level down to help that individual, of course, but also the community in general. 28 community partners and agencies have participated in a coordinated rapid interventions and support in this weekly convening of the Situation Table. We're also tracking systemic barriers like the lack of housing and transportation to better advocate for resources and address structural challenges. City Circle, which meets in this room every Monday, is our pre-charge diversion program for low-level violations for city ordinance violations. We launched it in January of 2026, and it is showing strong early participation, thanks to a robust group of local volunteers. And I'm so appreciative because it really shows Burlington at its best. Sorry. Milo. That when we have volunteers be able to put up their hands, get trained, and help launch a new pilot, and this is another piece of our community safety response. Finally, the Community Accountability Court, which was set up by Governor Scott this winter, resolved 78% of the cases that it had assigned to it during its operation. It just wound down in February. That reflects closing of 702 dockets in the county and connected high-risk individuals to the services that they need. This demonstrates that the court made significant headway in clearing a backlog, which I have talked about endlessly since becoming mayor, because it became such a bottleneck for an adequate and responsive accountability system. But this is a clear strategy that worked to clear a backlog that has been challenging our county's court system for many years since COVID. And while the special docket has now concluded, State's Attorney Sarah George is working with court partners and the Vermont Agency of Human Services to continue prioritizing high-risk, high-needs individuals on an accelerated track while connecting them to services. By combining enforcement, emergency response, early intervention, restorative justice, and structured accountability, we are taking a smarter, more balanced approach to community safety in the Queen City. The data that I mentioned earlier, and you can see again more in its entirety on Town Meeting TV, is really encouraging, and it shows that these strategies are delivering real results and moving Burlington towards greater safety and stability. We will continue measuring the outcomes, refining our strategies, and sharing results openly with the community ahead. I want to have you all join me in thanking our police and fire departments and all of our community safety partners and staff for their vital work and dedication to our community. And lastly, on community safety, I just want to mention that our police chief search process is underway. We've been working with a national firm called IACP, which we hired last year to assist us in the search. We're finalizing the candidate profile this week, and the IACP has already been out informally recruiting folks to know that Burlington will have an opening soon posted. And I encourage folks, if counselors in particular, to ask questions offline. We're happy to keep you updated on that important piece as well. Finally, in terms of, and actually before I go to community engagement, I want to mention briefly, last week we began bargaining with 2 of our 4 unions here in Burlington for the city, one being IBEW, which represents our Burlington Electric Department workers, and the other union being AFSCME, which represents the most of our unionized staff here in the city. And in our first day with the AFSCME team in terms of bargaining, I'm proud to say we reached somewhat of an unconventional but very important side letter on day 1 that AFSCME and the city were able to sign that shows a reflection of our mutual commitment to defend democracy and actually advance democracy at the same time. It is a general strike provision that has some parameters to it that we'll post online and put something out more publicly in the next couple days. But it's an important expression of responding to the political times for which we're living in, for which we have a lot of keen interest in making sure that the state of our democracy is defended and that our union workers have the ability to express their free speech rights and be able to engage in response in things like, for example, that are happening out in Minnesota. For community events, I just want to remind folks we have mayor meetups every week. The next one will be tomorrow. It's our virtual convening, and you can find information on the city's website to sign up and to join me tomorrow in our virtual mayor meetup. I was able to visit the soda plant last week, and if you haven't been in that space in a long time, it's a great incubator space and many longtime residents. They probably feel like they live there, but businesses in the soda plant. And I want to thank the owner of the soda plant, Steve Conant, who introduced me to many cool projects and organizations who work out of that very unique space. And I thought I knew it all from going there, an art hop for many years, but there's all sorts of nooks and crannies and very innovative folks sort of commingling and co-creating in this space, and it's a great place to check out. On Saturday, February 28th, I was lucky enough to join a meeting of the African Immigrant Women, supported by the Association of Africans Living in Vermont, or AALV, and also Building Bright Futures, and there with former Councillor Ali Zhang. And they welcomed me into their space to discuss town meeting day participation, because we do have all resident voting here, and we were doing some last-minute education on the items, but also to listen, most importantly, to them on issues that matter to them as mothers and as folks who have many children in our school district and in our community. With all the anti-immigrant sentiments increasing throughout the country, I was grateful to hold space with such strong and kind immigrant women, and they were very pleased to be able to have this point of engagement with local city government. I joined the members of the Islamic Society of Vermont a couple days, or maybe that same night, actually, who invited me to break fast with them. It is Ramadan, and I was joined by my Deputy Chief of Staff, and we were grateful for all the amazing food and very warm welcome that those members of our community offered at the local mosque. The Friday before town meeting day, we launched with our RAIB office a community voting night on February 27th with the support again of AALV to focus on increasing access to voting by bringing voter registration, voting, actual ballots, and language support together in one place. Every resident's vote is truly important, and I want to thank the teams at RAIB and AALV for supporting the effort to increase participation, especially among members of our local immigrant population. Bridges Recovery Shelter opened today. This is a new shelter that allows folks who are in recovery to have secure shelter. I was able to visit the new space today on Pearl Street, which will provide a long-term treatment for people with substance use disorder. And I'm excited that this community will now have a designated center for treatment. It's an embedded kind of design in the program, and always appreciative of our longtime partners, CVOEO, the Vermont Department of Health, and the Howard Center for making that come together. And with that, those are the mayor updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, we have public forum set for a time certain of 6:30 p.m. At the moment, we have 4 individuals here in City Hall signed up for public forum and 1 online. I do have some concern that if we started public forum now, that it may potentially end before 6:30, which would be problematic in case there's anyone from the public who's planning on getting here. at that time certain. And so in a moment, I'm going to, absent objection from any counselors, ask counselors whether anyone has any committee reports. We could skip to item 6 in our agenda. I will just note that if there's anyone here in person that wants to participate in public forum, you could sign up at the table here on the side of the auditorium. Online, in order to participate in public forum, you need to have signed up at least an hour in advance of the warn time of 6:30. As mentioned, absent objection, I'll turn to item 6 in our agenda, which is committee reports, and then we'll open public forum. Is there any counselor with a committee report? Yes, thank you, Councilor Bergman.
Thank you. So the ordinance committee meeting was held, well, one of them was held on the 6th of this month, and we dealt with the disclosure, the consumer protection disclosure items, and are actually very close to reporting back 2 ordinances. There was some work that needed to be done, but we'll get another hearing on that to just make sure, having got more or less finalized language, that the property owners are given ample opportunity to meet with us. They've had 3 opportunities already, so I don't anticipate any problems, but you never know. We also dealt with a zoning ordinance related to downtown fences in alleyways that I believe we have navigated a good compromise with regard to the proposal by the Planning Commission, staff concerns about particularly the form-based code and aesthetics in the downtown, and the need to also address safety in those particularly tough areas. So I look forward to that, and that will be coming back to us for a first reading and public hearing, and as well as comment by the Planning Commission. So there's progress on that. And the last thing is that our second meeting of the month will be held on the 19th. It will deal, as it generally does, with just UVM housing habitability issues, and I am hopeful that we will actually get ordinance change language, some of which was given a preview in the resolution that we adopted that sent it to the ordinance committee, but it has been, in my mind, and open to hearing other people on the committee, a good process where both the university and the UVM Student Tenant Union have had, I think, not only full and fair opportunity to talk to us, but to talk to each other and to try to build what I think should be, and I believe is, a mutual commitment to having habitable housing. There are some thorny issues, not the least of which is the forced triples that may not get through at the same time as some of the easier things that we have to deal with. And so you may get a partial solution to problems while we continue to keep jurisdiction over the matter, because that's just the way life is. And after that, then we meet in the next term, but have already been, and let me just close by saying I've already been in consultation with Sarah Morgan of the Planning Office about the so-called joint committee on inclusionary zoning, so that we can front load that. And while I say it here, my expectation and my hope, not necessarily expectation, is that the composition and organization of the ordinance committee remains the same, because we are particularly productive, and I think it's well worth it for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Is there any other counselor with a committee report? Councilor Grant.
Thank you. Starting first with the REIB committee meeting. The next meeting will be next Tuesday, the 17th, and we're actually going to hold our BIPOC stakeholders meeting in lieu of the normal REIB meeting. The reason for this is that we've been in search of a time that is convenient for more people. The original time, which would vary during the day hours, didn't accommodate a lot of work schedules. So I'm looking forward to this, and this will be taking place 5:30 to 6:30 at ALV in the One Community Center. And then the secondly is regarding the Public Safety Committee meeting. We were not able to have our meeting in February due to scheduling conflict, but I do want everyone to be aware that the reports from our chief of police as well as the chief of our fire department are attached to item 6 of this agenda, committee reports. These reports, there isn't the time to go into them in detail, but they are very, very important. I continue to encourage members of the public to review these reports. We still need to work on not politicizing our community safety discussions. And the best way to do that is to review the information coming straight from the police chiefs. And if you have any questions, definitely let us on the Public Safety Committee know. That would be myself, Councilor Barlow, and Councilor Singh. And if we can answer it, we'll be happy to forward it to the chiefs who have been more than generous with their time in deep diving the various reports. There is also a report that I will ask Chief Burke to review in our March meeting, and it's a look at the arrest reports, a comparison of what we did in 2025 versus the previous 5 years, and I find that very interesting as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Is there any other councillor with a committee report? All right. Well, thanks to those councillors for getting us to 6:30. It is now 6:30, and we will turn to public forum. Go ahead and open that up. As mentioned, we will begin here in City Hall with any Burlington residents who have signed up. We have 5 Burlington residents signed up. We'll then turn online. We have 1 Burlington resident who signed up online. If you're here in City Hall, when I call your name, please come forward here to the table, pull the microphone close. There's a push button on the microphone, which when you hit it, the green light on the microphone itself will turn on. If you're online, I will let you know once you've been promoted such that you can unmute yourself on Zoom. Whether here in person or online, every speaker will be provided 2 minutes. When you're providing comments, please direct them to me as the chair and not to any other individual. Our rules do not allow for any individualized comments or attacks at anyone here at the table. It's important that City Hall remain a safe space for those who serve, those here in attendance, and those tuning in online. We also ask that comments please refrain from any discriminatory or hateful comments, particularly those that relate to any individual's protected characteristics, and that comments also refrain from vulgarities, being overly loud or otherwise disruptive. If I interrupt a speaker at any point in time, it will be to ask that they respectfully continue their comments in alignment with these rules as I've described them. If someone continues in violation of these rules, I reserve the right to end public comment at that point in time. So with that, we will begin again public comment with those here in person, and the first speaker will be Caroline Donlin, who will be followed by, the next speaker is Emma Ramirez-Richer. I know, Emma, that you are a Housing Board of Review candidate. Would you prefer that we wait until we get to the Housing Board of Review appointment? Okay. So then after Caroline Donlin, it will be Andy Tracy. Is Caroline here? Great.
I'm sorry, is it? Okay.
You're good.
Good evening, Chair. Tonight I would like to call into question the city's interest in the installation of automatic license plate reader or ALPR cameras. These cameras not only track license plates, but all identifying features of a vehicle, including driver's identities and location. Put simply, this is a mass surveillance effort. Regardless of the intent behind this initiative, which should certainly be scrutinized, surveillance of this degree is an invasive measure that requires an impossible level of trust and transparency. As with most law enforcement technologies, ALPRs are produced and operated by private companies. Flock Safety, the leading provider of ALPR tech, including the camera outside the Burlington Subaru on Shelburne Road, maintains an extensive network of data shared between law enforcement agencies on all levels, able to be accessed for any reason by officers of the law. We've already seen the disastrous results of this in other parts of the country. In Kansas, Nevada, California, and Wisconsin, officers have been charged with stalking ex-partners using flock cameras. Flock cameras have led to several wrongful arrests. Flock collaborates with the Department of Homeland Security, sharing data with ICE, with no care to one city's policy. There will be no exception for Burlington. Our city, in adopting ALPR technology, willingly furnishes federal agencies with the means to track and spy on members of our community, the very same vulnerable people to whom the city has promised protection from the forces that wish to marginalize and oppress them. This measure will disproportionately affect unhoused and immigrant communities. We have seen, again and again, the rules being broken and bent to the will of the authoritarian presidential administration. All this is not to mention the exorbitant costs of this technology. I would like to leave the council with these questions. Is our money not better spent elsewhere, protecting the vulnerable communities of Burlington rather than persecuting them? Is a technology that is not even proven to prevent crime worth sacrificing our Fourth Amendment rights? Does this city want to find itself aligned with and complicit in the fascist politics that are plaguing this nation? I'd like you to ponder that. Remember that your constituents have a right to privacy, and it is not for sale. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andy Tracy, who will be followed by Bruce Wilson.
Hi, I'm Andy Tracy from Ward 4. I rode the 7 bus here today, and I'm here to talk about public transportation. Public transit is so important for our community because it creates so many possibilities for people. While riding the bus, I see these possibilities in action. People able to get to work, school, appointments, and social events. Older and mobility challenge Vermonters able to have freedom of movement. People able to reduce the number of cars they own, such as my wife and I, who are now down to 1 car from 2 when we moved here from North Carolina. I also see how public transit can make possible denser and more affordable housing. But you guys already know the benefits of public transportation. Burlington does a great job of funding GMT, and I'm very thankful for that. But now GMT is facing even more challenging financial conditions. They might need to scale back service even more. When GMT scaled back service on the bus route, the 7 route last summer, I found it much harder to use the bus. If people need to wait too long for a bus or can't find a way to their destination, they won't use GMT. They might buy a car or have to move closer to their destinations, and once that happens, it makes it even more unlikely those people will ever come back to using the bus. If we lose too many riders, it's going to cause even more problems, perhaps even starting a death spiral for public transportation here. We need public transportation that provides frequent and reliable service to our community. We need signal priority for buses at traffic lights. We need to expand and not contract services. We need your help to tell our state legislators that public transportation matters to us. There are bills like H 863 in the State House that will provide more options for municipalities to fund public transportation. Please press our state legislator to give us more options so that we can make a public transit system that provides even more possibilities to the people of Burlington. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Bruce Wilson, who will be followed by Brett Yates.
Hello, City Councilors, Chair, Honorable Mayor. I'm Bruce Wilson, and I'm also your Vermont Human Rights Commissioner. I'm a founder member of Art So Wonderful since 2003. All those cool murals you see everywhere and electrical boxes is founded by my program. And so it's going to be we're on the agenda 416 today to support our Art So Wonderful and things we do for Know Your Rights. And that's some things we're going to do right here in the Contours Auditorium. Just so you know, my programs have put on over 30 events in the Contours Auditorium, maybe like around the same at the Memorial Auditorium and all the parks in Burlington. So what I'm here to say today is that I just need everybody to continue to support our events. We have 8 events coming up. We're part of Juneteenth event, and we've been doing, the city and the city council have been supporting Juneteenth events with the murals in Thorson Way since 2024. And so this is going to be our 31 in Thorson Way. And this year is going to be Reverend Jesse Jackson is going to be on the walls this year. And I miss Reverend Jesse Jackson because I was born and raised around him all my life in Chicago. But it's going to be nice to see him on the wall, And so we have a lot of events that's coming in Contours Auditorium. All our events is in Contours Auditorium, except for the murals. and it's going to be like free events for people to enjoy music of like reggae and hip hop and Latin and all these events is for people who we serve in this city and who I serve in this whole state, in this state. And it's just give them an opportunity to sit back, showcase, have a good time. It's going to be free food and refreshments, and just have a good time and relax. Spend some tensions in Burlington, over the summer, and we want to relax these tensions. I'm also on the board for Vermont State Police, Fair and Partial Policing for over 10 years. They'll be our events too, as well as Burlington Police Department and Burlington Fire Department to help us secure and maintain. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Our last Burlington resident here in City Hall is Brett Yates, and then we'll turn online to Sharon Busher. Brett?
Hello. I'm here to urge the council not to privatize our municipal services. I think the mayor's office has presented the proposed contract with Casella as a sort of unavoidable necessity. If we don't do it, DPW will just have to continue mistreating its unhappy workers and forcing them into overtime shifts for a job that they didn't sign up for. I'm very sympathetic to the workers, but the mayor has not made a persuasive case about why hiring challenges can't be overcome when, of course, we expect Casella to overcome those same challenges. They'll have to hire people to do the job. I think this is a problem that the administration doesn't care to resolve, and we don't have to accept that. We don't have to accept the degradation of our public sphere and the privatization of services. I forgot what I was going to say. There's I have more points to make about this. I usually write things down. I'm busy. I guess I would say that if you do this, don't present it as like a stopgap measure that while the city contemplates a fully municipalized waste collection model. Like if you guys are doing this, you should recognize that you're giving away a public service probably forever. The city doesn't have the energy or the ambition to maintain this service. It's hard to imagine that they'll have the energy or ambition to start up a new service from scratch after we've privatized it. So thanks, bye.
Thanks, Brett. Our last speaker is online. If we could promote Sharon here. And Sharon, if you just give me a moment to share my screen here. All right. You should be able to go ahead, Sharon. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, President Travers. I also am going to speak about recycling, and I don't want us to privatize. I don't want you to sign the 7-year contract. I understand this has been a debate and a discussion that has gone on for quite a while, and so people have had a chance, if they've been following, had a chance to get educated on this topic. But I think the die is cast, and my opinion is my opinion. I hope I'm wrong, because I believe that once it's gone, it will never come back, just like the previous speaker. And I would, if I'm still alive in 7 years, I will look forward to coming down in person and to have all of you say, Sharon Busher, you were wrong. And I will be very happy with being wrong. I will really be very appreciative of this. But having said that, my statement about what you're about to do speaks to the committee that is going to be formed to study the consolidated plan. And I feel at this point in time, my confidence in the group of people that have already debated this and already formed opinions is low. I respect them, but I think you all come with your own bias and your own opinion. And so I'm really hoping that you would hire a consultant, an external consultant who has no relationship with DPW or the city, that can give you the facts you need and have that come back to this committee, which I have no issue with the makeup of, and then have you apply your political will and judgment to those facts. I'm very concerned about the committee and the process. I really feel that I'm glad that all of you weren't part of the city when we formed our electric department and our water department, because I don't think they would be city-owned utilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. If there's one thing I know about 7 years from now, it's that you will be alive, Sharon. So thank you for participating in public forum, and 7 years from now, participating in public forum. All right, we'll go ahead and close public forum now at 6:44 p.m. That brings us now to item 4 on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended and take the actions indicated? So moved. Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Singh. Is there any discussion on that motion? And I will note that we're joined by Councilor Kane online. Councilor Newbeezer did let us know before the meeting that he may join remotely, not here at the moment. He's feeling under the weather, and we wish him well. But 11 of us here now. Seeing no discussion on this motion, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Are any opposed? That carries unanimously. So that brings us now to our deliberative agenda. We will pause our deliberative agenda when we get to 7 o'clock, because we do also have to sit as the Local Control Commission, and I'll be turning to you, Councilor Broderick, at that point in time. But 6:45 now, so we'll move to the first item on our deliberative, which is item 5.1. It is a Housing Board of Review appointment, and I will open the floor to any nominations for the Housing Board of Review. Are there any nominations for the Housing Board of Review? Councilor Schachter.
I'd like to nominate Emma Ramirez-Richer.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Are there any other nominations for the Housing Board of Review? All right, seeing none, we will close the nominations for the Housing Board of Review. The nominee is Emma Ramirez-Richer. Emma, I appreciate your being here and signing up for public forum. Certainly, if there are any questions from the council, you noted here that you're available, but this would also be an opportunity, certainly no pressure, not everyone does it. If you had any comments for the council with respect to your nomination, you're welcome to give them. Otherwise, we would go to a vote. I don't have any comments besides what's in my application. Okay. Well, thank you for the application and for being here. Before going to a vote on the nomination, are there any comments or questions with respect to this nominee? Councilor Grant.
I have a couple of questions, if the nominee wouldn't mind coming to the table.
Sure. It's ultimately up to the nominee whether or not they'll answer them, but appreciate your being here, Emma.
Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, appreciate that. I was reading over the application that you submitted. Thank you for taking the time to do that. And I had a couple of questions about language that you used. So I want to be very clear what you meant. One comment was related to a quote-unquote fair environment for landlords. And I just wondered if you could expand as to what exactly you mean by that. Do you think there's things going on now that are unfair to landlords, or certain changes need to be made? I just would like to know your thinking with regards to that. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, I think my full answer to that question was balanced environment for landlords and tenants alike. I'm a renter, and I really value my landlord, who keeps our apartment very nice, and he comes over and he fixes everything, and we need more landlords like that so that we can maintain great housing here in Burlington. And, you know, I'm a young person who values affordable housing and living in a nice place. And I want other people around my stage of life to be able to come here and live here. And they're not going to do that if they are living in, quote unquote, a student slum or something like that as a young professional.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I had was the concept of a good faith, quote unquote, good faith renters versus bad faith renters. What is your definition?
I don't really have a definition for that. I just wanted to make sure that renters that are respecting the property get their security deposits back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Are there any other councillors that wish to be recognized on this nomination? Councillor Litwin.
Thanks, and thanks for being here. I've served on the Housing Board of Review for about 3 years, as did, I think, Councillor Travers, quite a bit before me.
5 years.
So he was only 18 at the time, so. What I thought I heard you say, and I just wanted to make sure I understood, was that you were respecting the reality that it's a quasi-judicial body, and so you need to remain impartial. But I wanted to make sure I understood that from the questions that you were just asked.
Yeah, I have looked at some of your ordinances, the city ordinances, and it seems like the rules are very clear. And I understand that the role would be to make fair decisions based on what the ordinances say. So from what I understand, it's pretty cut and dry, and I know some of the issues that do come before the board can be complicated, and that's why they're there. But I feel good about how the city ordinances create a pretty clear beacon to shine the way for that.
Thanks. That's a great clarification. I appreciate that. One of the things I saw was, yes, we have to apply the ordinances fairly to everyone, but that oftentimes there are nuances that can be involved, and it's also often an emotional conversation for folks because they're not usually there under their happiest of circumstances. So would you say that you're somebody who can fairly listen to both sides of an argument, apply ordinances fairly to both parties, and be a strong listener?
Yeah, I really would love to bring my strong listening skills to the Housing Board of Review.
Okay, great. Thank you. That helps me.
Thank you, Councillor Litwin. Is there any other councillor that wishes to be recognized on this item? All right. Then we will go to a vote on the nomination. As a reminder, our rules generally allow only yes or no votes on all items. The one exception to that is with respect to nominations, where councillors can either vote yes or no or abstain. Because we're before the regular city council here, this nomination requires 7 yes votes. With Councillor Kane online, I think I'll ask if the clerk could please call the roll.
Councillor Barlow?
Yes.
Councillor Bergman?
Yes.
Councillor Broderick?
Yes.
Councillor Carpenter?
Yes.
Councillor Grant?
Yes.
Councillor Kane?
Yes.
Councillor Litwin?
Yes.
Councillor McKnight?
Yes.
Councillor Schachter?
Yes.
Councillor Singh?
Yes.
City Council President Travers?
Yes.
11 ayes, 1 absent.
So with 11 yeses and 0 nos, 1 absent, that is unanimous among those voting. Emma, thank you very much for your application, and congratulations on your appointment.
So does this mean I am appointed, or?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. I just wanted to review the schedule and everything and make sure I can commit that amount of time. So this is final. That's okay. I just didn't know the process.
Yes, you have been appointed. My assumption is that the Housing Board of Review is staffed by the city attorney's office, and so my assumption is that, I guess, City Attorney Brown, I turn to you and your folks who staff this board as to whether or not they'll be reaching out to Ms. Ramirez-Richer.
Hi, I'm the city attorney. I can get your information right now, and our paralegal Shay Brunvan staffs Housing Board of Review meetings, and so I will have her reach out to you to provide you with the schedule and connect you with the other members of the board.
Okay, thank you so much. I just had a couple questions, but I really appreciate the appointment. Thank you for your time.
Great. And City Attorney Brown, I believe all the contact information is in the application itself, so on the agenda. So, great. This turns us now to item 5.2, which is an update on the 2026 legislative session. I believe we're joined by David Mickenberg, one of the city's advocates in Montpelier here this session. David, very much appreciate the written report, which has been attached to our agenda, but also very much appreciate your being here during a busy legislative session to update us on what's happening in Montpelier. So we'll provide you the floor for the presentation. We'll then turn to councilors for any questions or comments that they have. And then after this item, we'll turn to the Local Control Commission. David, thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you, Council President Travers and council members. Good to be back. So we're at close to the halfway point through the legislative session. This week is the final week before crossover, meaning legislation in each body has to pass out of committee so that it can be considered by the other body throughout the remainder of the legislative session, with some exceptions. Bringing good news on the charter front, H508, which was a charter related to the council's ability to revise electoral boundaries, passed the House Government Operations Committee overwhelmingly, passed the House overwhelmingly, and is now up for consideration in the Senate Government Operations Committee. We've had multiple hearings on the bill, including presentations from the City Attorney's Office and Councilor Bergman, lots of discussion and openness to working with the city to make sure that this bill does exactly what you all want it to, what the voters wanted it to do, with the least amount of restrictions. So currently, as all charters are, when they're submitted to the legislature, they're open to modification. Currently, the Senate Government Operations Committee is considering an amendment to make it more flexible for the city at appropriate times to alter electoral boundaries. So we think that bill shouldn't have any problem passing out of the Senate Government Operations Committee, moving to the Senate floor and being passed on the Senate floor. And we'll have to make a stop back in the House if the Senate changes it at all. But we see no concerns there, and hopefully we'll get that passed this year. The Burlington Gun Charter is still in the House Government Operations Committee. We had, I thought, a successful press conference on the topic, encouraging passage. Appreciate those that came to that press conference and participated. And we think that we will continue to remain optimistic about that passing. We are working on members of that committee and exploring all options that are available to us throughout the legislative session. So hopefully the next time I return here, I'll come back with good news on that gun charter, and we'll continue to push on behalf of the city for that. On the Just Cause Eviction Charter, there was a hearing in the House Government Operations Committee. One of the sort of messages we received back from you is in our last meeting together was make sure that these charters are being at least discussed in committee. They did have a hearing on the Just Cause Eviction Charter. Because there's legislation moving around landlord-tenant issues, the committee chose to defer to see the outcome of the landlord-tenant bill. That bill, which is H772, There was discussion about just cause eviction in that bill. It has not made it into the draft that was passed out of committee, but there are ongoing conversations about that legislation. It's currently being considered in the House Judiciary Committee and will likely go to the floor this week. So also opportunities to look at that in the Senate should it pass the House. And so I think this is an ongoing discussion, and there are a lot of people having the conversation about including just cause provisions in there. So more to come on that, but that issue has sort of been subsumed within the context of this landlord-tenant bill. The recently passed REIB charter, we anticipate and have some early signals that we will get the language up this week to Legislative Council to make sure that it's drafted into a bill, have it introduced, and we're hoping that it will not be controversial to pass that through the House Government Operations Committee onto the Senate and then off to the governor. So as of now, we're feeling very positive about that charter change and hoping to get that passed this year and signed into law. Moving through quickly, on the Budget Adjustment Act was just signed by the governor. Two important items for the city in the Budget Adjustment Act. One, there was a provision that was put in to help support public housing authorities around the state who have faced losses in Section 8 vouchers. There was language put in to provide a fund that can help prevent the further loss of vouchers during this fiscal year. And so positive for issues around affordable housing that the legislature chose to move forward on that. And secondly, we were able to work with the legislature to get language that supports communities where there is a stepped up federal presence or a presence of federal officials in communities. So should there be similar things that have happened in other communities in Portland, Maine, and Minneapolis and other places, there's an opportunity to access funds to help support our public safety needs and to support ensuring that citizens have their constitutional rights protected. So that was included in the Budget Adjustment Act, which has just been signed into law. Just a few more items. The homelessness response bill, which is H594, has been worked on throughout the entire session in the House Human Services Committee. It's still a work in progress, and we don't know the final outcome of what that bill will look like. It's really trying to capture the blend of approaches from shelter to the GA program, to rental subsidies and prevention programs to ensure that the state is adequately addressing issues around our unhoused population. We will continue on behalf of the city to advocate for resources for municipalities to ensure that municipalities have what they need to continue to work on this issue. Last year, there was $1 million included in H91, the homeless response bill that was ultimately vetoed, for municipalities to help with the issues that they face around the state, and we'll continue to advocate for funding and support for municipalities through this legislation. Two last items, license plate readers was one of the priorities on this year's city's agenda. There is a bill that has been taken up in the Senate Transportation Committee, had an initial walkthrough around automatic license plate readers. We will see if that advances, but understand that this is specifically related to automatic license plate readers for traffic enforcement. So we know there's been a lot of conversation in Montpelier around this issue, and we'll continue to monitor that and reflect the city's position on that issue. And finally, the House Appropriations is considering H660, which is the opioid settlement fund appropriations, which is an annual appropriations In line with the recommendations of the Department of Health and the Opioid Settlement Fund Advisory Committee, this year they did not include funding for Burlington's OPC in the FY27 ask. But in conversations with the legislature, both in the House and now going on to the Senate, they have left the door open for additional funding should circumstances present themselves that they're needed. So this is an ongoing conversation, and we think there will be some opportunity to make a case for additional FY27 funds as being needed in the Senate appropriations context. So, and that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thanks, David. And again, thank you for being here during a busy session. We'll open the floor now to any comments, questions from councilors. Does anyone want to get in the queue? We'll go Councilor Schachter and then Councilor Bergman.
Councilor Bergman can go first if you would
Okay,
like.
we'll go Councilor Bergman and then Councilor Schachter.
Always try to give somebody besides a big mouth like myself the opportunity. Thank you, David, for being here, for being down there. It's not easy work for anybody. Can you lay out what the objections are to allowing guns in bars and alcohol? They seem to mix so well, guns and alcohol, that I just really love to hear what those are.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the opposition to this has come from the traditional gun rights groups that feel that, you know, their personal safety is one that's protected by being able to have guns, even in a situation in a bar. Feel that existing rules, such as trespass rules, are appropriate and can be utilized by the bar owners, and that bar owners now can actually ban guns in bars just as a private establishment. Then others others have just the sort of fundamental right to bring guns essentially anywhere at any time, those types of arguments. Okay. So.
Thanks. Turning to the just cause, what do we need to bring to bear down there to get this thing passed?
Yeah, I think to the extent to which more tenants groups and others that support tenants are talking to their legislators about the need for just cause evictions, especially within the context of this landlord-tenant bill, that would be helpful. And I think just continuing to educate legislators about how important that is for tenants' rights and how it doesn't generally have like the type of negative impact that others may think it does. So,
can you provide us with a list of legislators that would be particularly important for us? I mean, I get lots of those requests to reach out to your legislators.
Yeah.
The non-strategic approach does not seem to generate the type of...
Well, should this bill, H-772, make it to the Senate, there are 2 senators on the Senate Economic Development Committee which represent parts of Burlington. So I think that would be a place you can focus. But that committee, 5 members of that committee would be where the energy should be focused on the landlord-tenant issues, yeah.
Thank you. It might be really helpful for half a page or just a page memo or something like that from you to just sort of focus us. That would be good. The last 2 are just questions of status, the rental notification charter change and the police oversight change.
Police oversight has not gotten a hearing yet.
And the reason?
I don't have one, but the chair has chosen to not take it up, yeah. And the rental notification one did get a hearing last year. They have not moved it, and they also, again, have looked at it within the context of the landlord-tenant bill, which in the current, and I could be wrong, but I'll follow up with you if I am, in the context of this current landlord-tenant bill has extended the termination notice to 90 days. And I don't remember if that exactly lines up with Burlington or not, but...
We were looking for a municipal authority to
Yeah.
do what's necessary. Is that anything that is being contemplated, or are they just going to keep their grubby little hands on everything?
I think right now they're looking to address landlord-tenant through the 772 as opposed in the charter. So the advocacy opportunity is through that bill. Will mention one other provision of that bill, which has been surprisingly universally supported generally, is around, in 2013, we passed statewide a Good Samaritan statute, which says if you're overdosing, call 911, and you can receive criminal immunity from, associated with the call of the overdose. There's a provision included in 772 which says that if you call 911, you're overdosing, you call and seek help, that evidence gathered as a result of that call, related to that call, won't be used in an eviction proceeding, which is something which is new and has not existed. There's been evidence that has shown that fear of eviction has been a barrier to people calling 911. So just for what it's worth.
Thank you, that's all.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Councilor Schachter?
Thank you, President Travers, and thank you for being here and representing our city. I actually just had a question. When I was reviewing these materials in advance of the meeting, I had a question about the Overdose Prevention Center funding. And I don't know if you're best to answer this, or I can just sort of put the questions out there for both the council and the public, and then we can follow up wherever it makes sense. But I was just curious, my understanding was that we had a multi-year funding commitment. So can you elaborate on what it means for there not to be funds budgeted in next year's budget for now? Is it because the funds already committed are still being used? Is it because there's concerns? Is this changing sort of where things have stood? Thank you.
My understanding is that, and the multi-year funding commitment is a commitment that was, yes, passed as part of this legislation, but the legislature always has the right to do what they want to do. My understanding, and happy to get more, is that the reality is that the release of funds came later than anticipated in terms of the first 2 years of funding, so that the OSAC committee, the Department of Health, at least at this point, felt like that there was other priorities that they wanted to fund through the use of the opioid settlement committee monies. That being said, we know that the legislators that have been deeply committed to this issue are continue to be deeply committed to it. So to the extent that over the next few months where we can demonstrate that these FY27 funds is absolutely critical and needed for this process to move forward, I think they're very open to that. So there's a lot of demands on the opioid settlement funds, and so there was other competing priorities at this point, and because some of the money was released later, they had some funds from the previous 2 years funding. But it was generally in the legislation that passed, it was a 4-year commitment. They wanted to give the OPC 4 years worth of funding, so it doesn't mean that it necessarily has to be consecutive years. So just because it doesn't receive the FY27 funds, it doesn't mean that it can't come back for FY28 or FY29 funds.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful, and I guess I think this goes without saying, but I think if there's any ways that this changes sort of the plans already underway, I'm confident that the council will have a conversation about it, but it was interesting to kind of learn where the funding is at.
Yeah.
President Travers, I'm going to add something, if I
ahead,
may,
Mayor.
please. We're planning on the Overdose Prevention Center to do a work session with the council in the final meeting in April. I forget what that date is, and a more comprehensive update, because we've had a conclusion of a community survey. We will have a report in late March, early April. There's a lot of moving parts that will be worthy of an update at that point. And just to add on to what David was saying, there is a lot of competition for limited opioid funds at this point. We have been earmarked money already, and VCJR, which is our community partner, has spent about $200,000 or so, and the city has also paid spent a portion of that for our own staffing for oversight. So we're still very much on track. Nothing is jeopardized, and we also have the Senate process, which, sorry, David, if I'm jumping or repeating something you already said. But the next chamber is now working on its part of the budget. So while it feels like tomorrow that will end the session, we have a long ways to go actually with the final budget.
Thank you, that's great.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Councilor Singh?
Yeah, I'm just jumping off of Councilor Schachter's question. Could you speak to what the other competing priorities are? And are they within Burlington? Are they in Chittenden County? What the use of these funds? So we can better understand how it could impact us here.
Yeah, I can follow up with the list of the OSAC funding recommendations included in 660. I don't have them off the top of my head. I know there were money for further prevention programs. I can't remember all the different funding, but I'm happy to send them to you. Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
And I just want to add on as well, David, sorry, just to say that, just remember, OSAC is a separate entity than the legislature. There are legislators who serve on that body. They make recommendations to the legislature, which they do not have to take in its entirety. So we're halfway through the budgeting process for the legislature. The House has weighed in on their appropriation letters by committee. So in this case, the House Human Services Committee has weighed in on where they think the spending would be. There's often alignment, but just want to add that what David might provide for OSAC may not align up 100% with what the housing recommendation is for budgeting related to anything related to substance use, and it also may not line up with what the Senate does, which is this beautiful process known as democracy in the legislature. So we will have to keep updating you because there will be even more iterations as the Senate now takes this work and moves through the budgeted process, and then they'll have a conference at the end, of course. Sorry, David, for jumping in on you.
Thank you, Mayor. Are you all set, Councilor Singh? Does any other councilor wish to be recognized on this item? Councilor Grant?
Thank you. Could you send information on the chair of the committee where the oversight and accountability is stalled? I find that really concerning, and I have a fear that we'll pass the year without any movement or consideration. I really think that it's important for all our charter items to get a vote. Even if they're voted down, I think it's important to have people on the record as to where they stand. And if the chair doesn't want to allow a vote on it, it would be very helpful to have a statement from them as to why. Our needs continue to be different from some of the other municipalities in the state, but I also know some of the things that we want are similar to other areas because they've had some of the same issues that have brought about this. I do have a lot of concerns about H772 with regards to protecting tenants' rights. I see the things that they want to add, but the things that they want to shorten are of grave concern. I know that some of our housing authorities would like to have some of the, for example, the length of time that evictions are taking. I completely understand why, because sometimes the only way, if you have an issue with someone who is selling drugs out of their apartment or letting people into a building, making that building unsafe or causing quality of life issues, the times for evictions that are meant to protect tenants seem to be, it becomes harder, right? It becomes harder to get an individual that is causing issues out faster because evictions are too often the solution as opposed to dealing with the crimes that are being committed. And there's many reasons why that happens. Too much to go into at this time, but I'm just saying when we shorten termination notice times, when we look at shortening court process time in a way that may not give an individual time to get assistance, a lot of people have to look for pro bono assistance, which is available, but has a very long wait list. These people who do this work for free have large caseloads, and they have a lot of people looking for help. So when we shorten these times, we may inadvertently deny people the time they need to be fairly represented. Termination notices, making sure that they're received by the tenant. I have had people report that they haven't received them, and that caused problems. The pay and stay rights, that's problematic. When someone has, whether they manage to work enough to get the money, or they borrowed money from friends and relatives. This idea in some cases, just a lot of nightmare scenarios that have been happening recently, like, you have the money, doesn't matter because we're evicting you now. And the clock's, you've got 30 minutes and we're just gonna stand here and wait for you to get out as much stuff as you can. I mean, I've heard a couple of really terrible stories recently. And we have this situation that I think needs to be taken into consideration around the fact that vouchers are being rescinded. And that is affecting, if people owe back rent, they might be able to keep up with the new current rent, but not keep up with the payments they were making on the back rent. And these are people, I mean, I had a story from someone who's working full-time with a 6-year-old daughter and got evicted. And I guess I will say there's a lot of concerns in here, and I think that some of it gives me pause in terms of being the lack of balance, right, between tenants and landlords. It's leaning a little bit more toward landlords in the current landscape, especially with vouchers being rescinded. Thank you.
Just two quick response on the first issue. We have had that conversation with the chair about taking up the charters even if they're going to lose. And, hearing the direction from the committee last time, I think he's frankly open to that. So I think through the course of the last half of the session, it may be something that he would be willing to do, and we'll continue to have that conversation with him. Some of the issues that you're reflecting on the landlord-tenant bill are issues that are being debated both in committee and among advocates now, and that's why this bill is a hard one. And so it was taken up in the House Judiciary Committee, and the Judiciary came in and has testified on it. Many have concerns about the timelines that have set. So we anticipate that this week, the final week before crossover, that some of these issues will be fleshed out more. And ultimately, I don't know what the balance will be between landlord-tenant rights. It's unclear at this point. But absolutely, some of the concerns that you have are being reflected in the various advocacy that's happening around this bill. So,
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Does any other councilor wish to be recognized on this item? Councilor Litwin?
Thanks. I just have a couple quick questions. One is about the position that you mentioned, the city's position on the speed cameras. And I just maybe need to go back to what is your understanding of the city's position, because we had a conversation about it here. We've continued to have public comment, emails about it, folks responding at the door, on the phone. I certainly, my position was a tepid yes on it when we first discussed it, because I was concerned that we couldn't get the assurances that this would not be used inappropriately, and now we know that, and by inappropriately, let me just clarify, I mean used by other agencies beyond the scope of what we would want it used for, including immigration enforcement, so, and the tracking of individuals. So I guess my question is, what's your understanding, and has that changed at all?
my understanding is based on what was passed out, I think, by the council on the priorities list, which is the use of automatic license plate readers only if the information can be controlled by the city, and that has not changed, yeah.
So I think it's important for the public to just hear that especially as you may have heard, we had another public comment tonight about the concern that people have once this got passed out of here. So I just don't think this is going anywhere. And so I just want to, I guess, reduce the alarm that the public might have. And so if there's anything that you might say that, I mean, do you disagree that you think it's going to go, move ahead?
The legislation? Had an initial hearing in the Senate Transportation Committee. I don't see it on the agenda this week for the Senate Transportation Committee. Doesn't mean that it ultimately couldn't pop up somewhere, but given the crossover rules, if it's not voted out of Senate Transportation this week, then it seems less likely that it would be something that will advance. But
great. So I guess I would just ask if you could please alert the city and Council President Travers if something changes. That has become a shift. In my opinion, the public is very concerned given what's going on in our country right now. And the second question I have for you is about—
President Travers, can I just add to that?
Sure.
Just to round out
Hold on, we're gonna pause Councilor Litwin's timer. Hold on. Sorry.
Just add to the process. So we're a long way from any contracted service because there needs to be enabling legislation first. All of our legislative allies, including Representative Beverly Rachelson, who's long on record, who represents part of Burlington, has been very careful around the data privacy elements of this. There's also other legislation attempting to move through the legislative body for the last 3+ years to fortify and strengthen data privacy overall for the entire state of Vermont and to get back in the lead in terms of the country on all the issues that folks are raising. And I mention all of that for greater context. No bill is passed in isolation per se. Our original interests in this body unanimously supported. We need other solutions for basic safety in our city because we are so under-resourced for enforcement of traffic. There's a lot of literal public safety, physical safety for everyone, and we're trying to get creative within the constraints. But also, most importantly, if this was legislation enabled, there are many steps that this body would need to take to vet contracts, to look at that, to make sure data privacy was adequate. There are many, many, many steps ahead if there's even a legislation that enables a community to do this. And there are other communities across the state that are also are in the same situation of limited local resources, who don't even have police departments in their smaller towns, who are trying to just get creative. But data protection, period, is a priority. There was a language specifically put in by this council that we are very much abiding by in the legislative process. And we're trying to make the case to the state that communities left on their own with under-resourced police departments are having fundamental safety issues with traffic. And I'm very afraid about how to balance both of those issues when we know that we have a lot of bad behavior happening that is just, one car accident away from tragedy in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks.
Councilor Litwin, we'll go
I
back to you.
appreciate the mayor's additions. I will just say, having the Beltline in my ward, I'm very aware of the lack of enforcement capabilities that we have, which is why I initially supported it with trepidation. And I agree that we need tools, but I'm not, particularly interested in exploring tools that can be misused under the current federal administration. So the H772, and Councilor Bergman brought up the housing, the rental notification period charter, which I had written and referred to charter, and then something you said was to the effect of they're looking that maybe H772 is the best space for advocacy around this. Do you see an opportunity in your role to potentially try and get some changes to H772 that would enable a municipality like ours to set those rental notification periods? We already have 90 days, so the change that you are saying they're suggesting benefits everyone in the state except for Burlington.
Yeah, I think there's always an opportunity to advocate for that. Yes, we'll see if this bill makes it through this week, in the next couple of weeks. I think probably the space to advocate for that is on the Senate side when it gets there.
Okay, so just, I only have 30 seconds left, so I'll be really quick. I wrote this charter because we continue to have folks getting rental increases that are hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and they're given, you know, a pretty short timeline to find an apartment in this market. We need to be able to be responsive to the market that we have in Burlington, which is just different from the market, the rental markets in other communities. We share some of the same problems, but not all. So call our senators, I guess, and hopefully you can please bring that up with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Litwin. Any other councilor that wishes to be recognized? Okay. Well, David, as always, appreciate your being here. Thank you to your team. We will look forward to having you back, likely towards the end of the session, maybe a recap of what happened afterwards, but feel free to be in touch, obviously, before the end of the session.
Great. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
The next item on our deliberative agenda is item 5.3, a resolution on the 7-year plan for residential recycling collection. I did mention that we would have to pause briefly our city council meeting, though. We had warned our local control commission to meet at 7 p.m. I know we have a number of guests here on item 5.3, including a number of city staff members, but appreciate your patience as we just briefly turn to our local control commission. So I will recess the city council at 7:29 p.m. and call to order our local control commission at the same time. And Commissioner Broderick would ask you for a motion on our agenda.
I would move to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thanks, Commissioner Schachter. Seeing no discussion on that, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That is unanimous. Commissioner Broderick, could I ask you for a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to adopt the consent agenda and take the actions indicated.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Commissioner Schachter. Any discussion on that? All in favor, then please say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? That is unanimous. And then we have 3 deliberative items on the agenda. Commissioner Broderick, could I turn to you for a motion on item 3.1?
I move to approve the 2026-2027 first and third class liquor license applications for Preppy Market and Eatery 50 Lakeside Avenue with all standard conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye then.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Item 3.2, please, Commissioner Broderick.
I move to approve the 2026-2027 first class liquor license application for Upper Pass, 1127 North Avenue, Suite 8, with the following condition, contingent upon fire marshal approval and with all standard conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Litwin. Any discussion on this item? All in favor, then, please say aye.
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 Are any opposed? That is unanimous. And now, item 3.3.
I move to approve the 2026-2027 outside consumption permit application for Upper Pass, 1127 North Avenue, Suite 8.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Litwin. Any discussion on this item? All in favor, then, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Seeing no other business before the Local Control Commission, absent objection, I will adjourn that meeting at 7:31 p.m. and resume our City Council meeting at the same time. As mentioned, we're now on item 5.3, a resolution regarding a 7-year plan for residential recycling collection and consolidated collection study. We are joined by DPW Director Chapin Spencer and Division Director Lee Perry. Director Spencer, my assumption is that you may be kicking us off here. Great. Whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you, City Councilors, President Travers. We are here this evening to discuss a plan for continuing the city's residential recycling collection in the interim 7-year period, and a very exciting opportunity to look at a full consolidated collection system for trash, solid waste, and recycling. With me, we have Lee Perry, Division Director of the Maintenance Division that oversees recycling. We also have a number of our staff here tonight and representatives from Casella if there are any questions for them. Our commitment to managing the city's solid waste is growing, and for the first time in years, we've budgeted money to maintain our city landfill in Manhattan Drive. Last year, we set aside funds, thanks to your support, for 201 Flynn Avenue, purchasing that property to develop Consolidated modern soil management facility. A couple of years ago, we worked with CSWD to expand drop-off services at 339 Pine Street. And so tonight's two actions really build off of that commitment. And our plan tonight is to ask for your support for the two actions I just previously mentioned. There are three top-line benefits for why continuing the city's recycling collection through a private contract for the next 7 years really makes sense and have our recommendation. Number one is protecting DPW's existing workforce. The continued operational challenges have impacted work groups across DPW with more reactive work, missed billable revenue, and more stress. Number two, providing DPW the space away from day-to-day recycling operations to dedicate our time to a comprehensive consolidated collection study will enable us to do a solid job of this study and move hopefully to a much more organized and efficient system for all three waste streams, not just recycling. And number three, saving money for FY27's general fund budget. When compared to a sustainably run, municipally operated system, we can achieve that savings through this interim plan while also expanding services to customers. We received bids in 2 rounds. In the summer, we bid out 3 to 5 year contract terms for the city's recycling program. We did not get a competitive bid in that round. We subsequently put in the fall of 2025 a second 7-year term that did result in 1 competitive bid from Casella. That bid was good for 60 days. Casella has since extended the timeline of the bid being valid 3 times at the city's request, currently through March 20th. In order to start service by January 1 and reach and attain the financial savings that we've discussed, we need council action tonight, as the vendor needs time to hire staff, buy equipment, and get ready for the service. You see in the memo the financial considerations. I won't go through all the detail there. Suffice it to say, on our calculation for FY27, starting July 1, the savings by going through this contracted route are approximately $198,000 for this first fiscal year. There is a related issue in the memo that I've had a chance to discuss with the TUC that I wanted to bring to the council's attention, and that is the question of who pays the solid waste generation tax that funds this recycling collection. Historically, haulers have passed on the tax to customers of theirs who receive the city's recycling service. That has been the practice well prior to my tenure here at the city, but in reviewing city ordinance says that the language states that all residents receiving trash service should be paying the solid waste generation tax. So there are others who could be paying in to the system that we will be working with the Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee to figure out how to calibrate this policy disconnect for FY27. There are a number of operational considerations in the memo. I won't go through many of them, but DPW continues to struggle with operational strain given the resources and the financial constraints for many years of tight budgeting with running a very broad array of operational needs. I will highlight just 2 in equipment maintenance. In FY21, just 5 years ago, we were doing more preventative maintenance work by number of service requests on our equipment than we were doing repairs, reactive repairs. 5 years later, we are doing 2 times more repairs than we are doing preventative maintenance on the city's fleet. And that's not just our fleet, it's BEDs, it's parks, it's across the city. In street maintenance, we've gone from Lee's team reconstructing over a mile of sidewalk every year to now a half mile of sidewalk a year. Now, there are several reasons for this, but a large one is the number of staff who get pulled to do recycling every day and away from street maintenance. There are in the proposal in front of you tonight 2 additional benefits for having a private contractor do the recycling for the next 7 years. Number 1 is holiday collection service that will happen most days on holidays where the city was not able to collect. And then on major holidays, yes, there will be collection the Saturday after the major holiday. We did not have the staff to do a follow-up pickup after major holidays, and the contractor will be able to do that. Additionally, they're able to offer backdoor access for either seniors or other customers who would prefer the convenience of not having to bring the toter to the street. The contractor would offer that additional service at an additional price with the customer, but that has not been a service we have been able to offer. The contract terms are in front of you this evening. We were able to negotiate a number of improvements from the first bid we received from Casella, but we did not get everything. I will not go through the detail on those, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Importantly, this is just the first component of a 2-part request in front of you tonight. And that second part is a very important full evaluation of a consolidated collection system for trash, recycling, and compost. If you're like me, who has 3 different haulers collecting the 3 different waste streams, it is an inefficient and fragmented system that's not friendly to our residents. We have the opportunity to have a very well thought out, full evaluation of moving to a consolidated collection system. We have, in the resolution, established a proposed advisory committee with broad representation, and we, through giving DPW the space to have the contracted operation, will give leadership the space and time to do this consolidated collection study well. And agreeing with one of the comments earlier this evening, we agree we need to pull in outside help to do this work. There needs to be a national expert helping us with this process. There have been a number of concerns expressed about the ability to return to municipal operations should that be the direction of this advisory committee and the city council. And I just want to state clearly that the staff and leadership are fully open to either approach, a city-run operation or a contracted operation, and we need to do the study to determine the best direction. When recycling started in the 1990s, it started as a contract operation. We brought it in-house. We can do that again if needed. The city ordinance gives us broad rights and to regulate trash and recycling collection, and we're prepared to use those authorities. Residents will continue to own their carts, and we will be liquidating 4 trucks, 2 of which are end of life. But if we were to get into trash, recycling, and compost, we'd need to be purchasing a whole fleet of trucks. I want to thank all the folks who have been involved, AFSCME, all the DPW employees, leadership as well, the council, the TUC, Councilor Bergman for a number of amendments on the resolution tonight, the commission and CSWD who have been involved, and the public for their feedback. There are a number of attachments here in the packet tonight, and I'm happy to talk through any of those. The amended resolution that's in front of you is the result of a good back and forth at the TUC and follow-up with TUC members. to clarify the advisory committee's composition, to clarify to advance the start of the study sooner. And we have representatives here available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Spencer. Before turning to Councilor Barlow as chair of the TUC for a motion on this item, is there any more commentary from any members of the administration? Yep, Mayor.
Thank you, President Travers. I'll just weigh in right now before the council just starts its debate on the resolution. Before I just speak to my position and where I got to at this point, I just really want to appreciate Team DPW for months, if not years, of work on this particular thorny issue. This is a great example that there is, while you get a yes and no vote on most things, it is far from binary. The work of public policy and all the nuance and all of the complex, multi-layered things one has to consider when making decisions. I wish any of our votes and our positions were that easy. And I also want to really appreciate AFSCME, who's been a really strong partner throughout this entire process, which is sounding number of issues, which I'm sure councilors know well at this point, around the impacts it has on our workforce, around every iteration we possibly could have figured out to try different solutions and pathways to continue to find a sustainable path. But we could not do that. And sometimes part of leadership is figuring out the best option that we can come up with, given the constraints of the realities of finances and staff and literally people's bodies that we're asking to put on the line to do this work. And so just to be clear, my personal decision as mayor, that this has not been an easy decision or process for me to come up with my position on municipally run recycling in terms of us actually providing the hauling service directly. It reflects months of work back and forth, almost over a year since I've been mayor, and we really are trying to grapple with the operational realities that are facing the city. Chapin has dutifully gone through many historical points. I mean, we're not in the 1990s anymore. We're at a different point of this being a service that's provided by different haulers at this point. This was not the case back in the 1990s when the city was trying to facilitate people actually recycling as a policy measure, as a public good measure that no one else was operating and offering. In order to keep this program running, as Chapin mentioned, and one of the major reasons that I came to this decision point myself is that our service realities are our service realities, and our staffing realities are this reality. And we keep pulling staff off of the jobs we hire them to do this very difficult work, and we're taking them off their assigned work that is often billable, and this contributes to our ongoing financial challenges as a city. And so this is one particular piece that I think it's really important to grapple with. And having spent many years in the labor movement, I take very seriously privatizing services. And one of the key distinction points that helped me on this issue is that per ordinance, the city still has oversight over who collects the services. We get to make that decision about who we contract with or doing this waste removal service in-house. And there comes times where you have to, again, find the nuance of contracting versus privatizing. They're different concepts, and I don't want to conflate the two because public oversight is a very important and vital issue and value that we have here in the city of Burlington, and I have as mayor. But when you are faced with other realities that include the financial reality of the city, the future that we're going to try to work towards diligently around a comprehensive waste stream collection service, which is really the future. In the 90s, we weren't doing compost, and also even thinking about what the future would be for a municipally run sustainable system, But we're not there yet, and we need to take the time to pause strategically to put things in place so that we could build something that we can sustain. So in the future, I hope that we get to that point. I have every intention to help us lead us to that point with the work of this committee that's imagined in this resolution. And I do, again, really appreciate the staff, the frontline staff who've been collecting recycling and making sure that we do something because it's been a brutal ask of a lot of our staff. And I just, again, appreciate coming up with this compromise. It is the best solution we can come up with all the professional insights by our team. And I hope that we can get your support tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Before turning to you, Councilor Barlow, for a motion, Lori, I note that Councilor Newbeezer is online. If we could promote him to a panelist, that would be great. Thank you. Councilor Newbeezer is chair of our TUC. Sorry, not Councilor Newbeezer. Counselor Barlow. I just called you Carter. Counselor Barlow, as chair of the two, could I turn to you for a motion on the item?
Certainly. I would move to waive the reading and adopt the resolution and ask for the floor back after a second.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Thank you, Counselor Bergman. Counselor Barlow, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So we've been talking about recycling for a while now. And passage of this resolution tonight will solve a chronic resourcing issue that has been ongoing and that we've been wrestling with for at least 2 years. And we've heard it'll save money in a tight fiscal environment. And this contract has the support of AFSCME, and I saw representatives here from AFSCME tonight, DPW leadership, the Public Works Commission, and the administration. And I've spoken a lot about this at other meetings, but I just want to point out 2 important elements of this resolution that need to be highlighted. I think it's first important to point out that we are not privatizing our recycling service. To city residents, the service will not appear any different. A truck will come weekly and pick up recycling in a city blue bin or a toter. The service will continue to be paid for through a solid waste tax, and if residents have issues, they can call DPW. Also, DPW will have oversight of the contract. What is changing if we approve this resolution is rather than a city employee collecting the recycling, Casella will be doing it. We contract other businesses for city-provided services, for example, legal work, street repair work, and security service. So outsourcing is not without precedent or at all unusual, and it doesn't mean we lose control or oversight. And the second thing I wanted to highlight is through this resolution, we will formalize and fund a commitment to study and evaluate a fully consolidated collection model that might be implemented at the end of this recycling collection contract. That evaluation and possible implementation will be a multi-year effort. And if after that evaluation, a consolidated model is shown to be less expensive or provide better service to Burlington residents, then I do believe that it's something a future council and city voters would embrace and approve. So with passage, we won't lose the opportunity for consider a consolidated collection system, but instead we'll be setting up a process to do exactly that. So this resolution solves an immediate resource issue, it saves money, and sets up a consolidated collection study for the longer term. So it seems like a win-win to me, and I'm hoping my council colleagues will support it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Who else would like to get in the queue on this item? Councilor Bergman?
Well, it's no secret that I have consistently argued for a municipal system since the 2021 debate on consolidated collection. Solid waste collection and disposal is a natural monopoly. Competition between haulers does not lead to cheaper services for residents. Having many large trucks pick up on the same street is not better for the streets, air quality, or the climate. Solid waste collection, including recycling, is a public good. This is something the state recognizes when it created our county-based solid waste district system to manage the trash, recycling, and compost that we generate in efficient, economical, and environmentally sound manner, and it's why it should be subject to democratic control on a not-for-profit basis. But I am convinced that we cannot get there now, sadly. We need a strategic retreat, in my estimation, from our current system to create the framework to make a democratic, comprehensive, not-for-profit solid waste collection system a reality, and this is going to take time. And the timetable in the packet makes this clear. So I am especially grateful to the union for being supportive and wanting to be part of this framework. Acting in solidarity is something that I really cherish, and I really appreciate that. If we do it right, it should result in affordable rates, good-paying union jobs that are pathways to career advancement, and a comprehensive system that's better for the environment and our streets. And I'm mindful of the unions and management's concerns regarding the stress of the current program. Casella faces the same labor problem. They acknowledged it in hearings at the TUC, but ours creates serious tensions for all of our DPW functions, and that is something that's important. And this pause will allow us to significantly reduce the stress while it commits us to creating the possibility of a new system. Now, I understand the doubts of my friends who will vote no, and I share them. This is not going to save us significant money to deal with our budget needs, and I think that the $198,000 savings that's promoted is inflated, and all you have to do is look at the paper which we've got in there, because if we solve the labor crisis, I would be in a different position. So we're not spending all this money on it. But be that as it may, there are also built-in escalators that are going to cost residents and the city itself over the long term of this contract. And once we eliminate the program, as Councilor Busher and others have said, it will be very hard to set up a new municipal enterprise and maintain it on a sustainable level. So the choice that I'm faced with, that I've been faced with, but that I have chosen, is in many ways a gamble. It's a bet that we can and will devise a better system with the time this pause allows, and then to adopt it. The big reason this bet is worth it for me is that it will make the lives, work, and home of our workers and managers significantly better, and that's important to me. Contracting out the work for 7 years seems like the better choice, because I just don't see how staying with the status quo is going to allow us to overcome the labor and equipment problems we've got. I don't see how the status quo will allow us to develop the resourced, comprehensive, democratic, not-for-profit alternative to the fractured process we have. We will continue to be in a crisis mode. Combining the contracting with the commitment gives us the best opportunity to do both. And this is why I'm going to be voting yes on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Who else would like to get in the queue on this item? Councilor Carpenter, and then Grant.
Thanks. I don't want to repeat the words of my colleague, particularly both Marlowe and Bergman. I just don't think, I view this as an opportunity to really set us on a better path. There's nothing wrong with saying you have to contract. I think Spencer, in one of his earlier presentations, said that 60% of the municipal services in the country run under a contracted basis. So we've got lots of communities out there to learn from. We also just have to remind ourselves that Burlington is small. We have a county mandated, well, a statewide mandated recycling, and in a county. So somehow the study committee is going to have to kind of pay attention. How do we fit in the county? When we started it, nobody was recycling. And even when they were supposed to mandate it, they weren't. Now people, I think, have embraced it. They want to do it. It's a different environment. But I bet we don't, our current recycling is probably, what, 10, 15% of the recycling in the county? It's probably, I have, look at, in my district, 6 big residential complexes and a shopping center. They're all using private haulers, driving right by my street. So I think we just have to throw that all in the bucket, and this is an opportunity for us to look at efficiency regionally as well. So I just see this as an opportunity. I hope the committee also looks at things like, do we need weekly pickup? Are there other efficiencies in the system? And we should just, I think, be grateful that we had the cooperation to sort of get us there. And I think, as Chapin pointed out, we have strong ordinances to support our management. So they can call the shots. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Councilor Grant?
Thank you. So when this conversation started, I was a very hard no tonight I'm a reluctant yes, and agree with some of the points that have been made by my fellow counselors. I did not join the council to put our recycling program in any sort of danger. For me, this has been a real battle of values, right? On one hand, the recycling program itself, its importance to helping keep the city clean, and also climate goals as well. And the other side is in talking to the union in detail, and I appreciate the time that was given to me, and also having employees come to the council, talk during public forum, and talk in other areas, I cannot ignore the opinion of the union, and I cannot ignore the well-being of our employees. And so that is why I'm voting yes. The union like to see and feels best for what they're referring to as a strategic pause, mainly to make sure that we are saving current jobs that are currently filled while we can't fill these other positions. And due to the inability to be able to fill these other positions, yes, we did come back and say, okay, how do we make this more attractive? Doing the salary adjustment, doing the bonuses, and maybe it was too late. Like, had we started earlier, I mean, it's very easy to Monday morning quarterback, so to speak. But the facts remain that positions are not being kept filled here. And if someone does take that position, they tend to then move on to something else once they pass their probationary period. This seems to be the pattern that we've seen. We've talked about the cost of the vehicles. I've said it many times. I'm obsessed with fleet and how much fleet is costing us. And, we would be saving money in different ways and not having to lease new vehicles, and also taking away the time because they have an abnormally high percentage of times that they're down for some sort of repair. So all of that has been discussed. All of that is in the information that's attached to this agenda item. I encourage the people of Burlington to read it. I would be remiss if I did not say that there is a legitimate concern, a legitimate fear that in terms of the comprehensive solid waste consolidation study, will this happen? As Councilor Bergman said, it's a gamble, and it's one that we can't afford to lose. We have to depoliticize that, because the last time we tried it, there was a lot of politics about it. The politics involved the haulers, who, quite frankly, were united in not doing this because they were all afraid of losing money. How are we going to deal with that in the conversation? Because that's a real thing. And I would also say, being afraid of losing money, they would spend money to get the people of Burlington, which I saw at the time, voting against our own best interest. So that has to be part of the conversation and addressed head on as we start to do this. And we have to be showing the people of Burlington that we're meeting the deadlines of the committee, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you. And I just want to say that I greatly appreciate the administration, DPW, and AFSCME for, throughout this whole process, the long and nuanced discussions that I've gotten to engage in since this debate once again emerged. And I greatly respect the perspective and the lived experiences of our city workers and our DPW team. That being said, I'm once again against contracting out our recycling service. I will not sign off on this gamble, as my colleague spoke of. While I appreciate that this resolution is going to act as a jumping off point towards a fully consolidated waste collection system, and I'm looking forward to that process regardless of how this vote goes. The objective truth of the matter to me is that 7 years is a long time. That time will certainly be needed to pursue a potential consolidated system, but regardless of the current position of the city on this being just a 7-year pause, just a strategic retreat, there is no guarantee that this position will hold 7 years from now or at any point between now and then. If we get rid of our infrastructure that we do have now, will the city be willing to bring it all back and potentially expand it to all waste collection in 7 years? If we do choose to pursue a consolidated system, there is no guarantee that we will be ready when this contract is up. At that point, then what do we do? I do not know the answers, and I don't think a lot of the people here know the answers to these questions right now. And things change quickly. Things have changed dramatically in our community and in our country in a very short amount of time. And thinking about 7 years in the future, I'm glad that we have people in the city that are thinking 25 years in the future, because that's a frankly insane concept for me at some points. But that being said, I fear the consequences of, for whatever the reason may be, the city choosing not to take recycling back, and the consequences that we will face that we may not feel until 7 years from now. I don't think that this fear is unfounded, but I hope to be proven wrong if this vote is in the affirmative, because the consequences of privatization of public goods are well known, especially here in Burlington. Higher costs and greatly diminished public accountability, regulated or not, being chief among them. I do not want this to be yet another case study. And while that is no excuse to do nothing in regard to improving our public services, we must protect the public good and make our services better for our workers and for our residents. And on that, I must reiterate that this stance is not a defense of the status quo, nor is it a mutually exclusive stance to hearing and addressing the real concerns that we have heard from our city workers and from DPW. No, our current program is not perfect. We need flow control and other reforms to who has to use the city program to haul. We need modern trucks. We need to spin off recycling into its own division or into a separate public enterprise, and we need adequate staffing so workers who did not sign up to haul recycling do not need to do it. Throughout this process, I have always publicly supported and advocated for these much-needed improvements while pushing the city to retain recycling so we can do those things. And I have supported the raising of revenue to do that, so as to not take money and staff away from the rest of DPW's important work. If we retain our recycling service, this should continue to be a priority, and one that we should pursue rather than giving it up, potentially not getting it back, and suffering the consequences of another public good being run for profit instead of the people and the workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Broderick. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on this item? Councilor McKnight?
Thank you, President Travers. So I want to also start by acknowledging all the hard work that DPW and the union and my colleagues here have put into this. I recognize there have been some real challenges with our recycling program, and it's been very difficult work for the people providing these really essential services. So thank you for sticking with us and doing all that hard work all along the way. But I still think it's worth trying to fix. And you know, this vote is about more than staffing. To me, it's about whether Burlington keeps a hand on one of the most powerful tools we have to influence how people deal with the waste they produce. Recycling and, of course, trash also, you know, on the surface they might seem like mundane city services, but in my view, it's actually where climate policy meets our real daily lives. It's where people make choices about how they consume, how they reuse things, and what waste they produce. And the way that we all deal with all of our stuff and the waste it creates is, as human beings and citizens of planet Earth, is one of the most impactful choices and potential areas of action that each of us has in confronting climate change and our impact on the planet. And even I've learned a little bit here tonight myself about the history of this program. This very program is an example of our recycling program is an example of how a city can be pivotal in driving behavior change. Before it existed, people didn't recycle, and now they do. And Burlington led the way on this. And I don't understand why we don't want to be a leader in the state as we move forward into the future. I've said a few times before that confronting climate change means politicians have to make some uncomfortable choices sometimes, and for me, this is one of those moments. My concern, I share Councilor Broderick's concern that once we contract this out, we're letting ourselves take the easy way out, and we're giving up our ability, not just today in the short term, but in the long term for future leaders who might want to think bigger and push harder on waste reduction and recycling. And we also have to be very honest with ourselves and the public. Once it's contracted out, it is not coming back as a city service. I don't think ever, even with the committee and the study on the consolidated collection. So I'm just not willing to support Burlington taking a step back in our leadership on climate change, and I will be voting no tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on this item? All right. Councilor Newbeezer.
Thank you, Council President. I apologize. I'm homesick again. We've got a puke bug going around my house, but I wanted to make sure I tuned in to voice my opposition to this proposal. And I appreciate everybody's comments. I think it's always a sad day for me when I'm voting in the opposite direction of my esteemed colleague, Councilor Bergman. But I do think he described it well, and I think we're taking when you called it, Councilor Bergman, a gamble, and I think that's what this is, and I think I'm just landing in a different spot with where I'm coming down on the judgment call. So a few quick points here. One, I do think that I would describe this as privatization, right? We are taking something the public runs that is a we employ folks to do the work, and we're handing it to a private company. I'm concerned about that for a number of reasons that have already been outlined, but in principle, that ultimately that will be worse for consumers. I'm not convinced, and I haven't been convinced, and I should say I appreciate the work of DPW throughout this process and being so communicative and responsive, as you all always are with the council. But I am not convinced that this will be any sort of significant savings for taxpayers. I just, that 198,000 number, I'm just not sold on. And I think that, I hope I'm wrong, but I think that as time goes on, I'm going to be proven right on that front. As for the workforce challenges, we've already spoke to this already, but we are not the only ones experiencing these workforce challenges. These are challenges that Casella is also facing. I'm concerned that we are, while we do have, regulatory authority, so to speak, or we can set the terms of a contract, there are not, as we know, as we've learned throughout this process, there are not a plethora of options in the private market. There is one option that had the ability or interest in doing this work in the private market. And so we are not in a strong, I don't feel like we're in a strong position in the future to advocate for the needs of residents and for taxpayers. And then my final point here, excuse me, I just did want to acknowledge, I appreciate my day job is working for a public sector union. And so I did want to acknowledge and appreciate that this is hard work. There is real strain on city employees. I appreciated the union's leadership engaging with myself and other counselors on this issue. I just think there are substantive alternatives that we could be pursuing, some of which we've already pursued as a council here and as a city to address those issues. To my mind, we talked about some of the hiring challenges. We made a relatively modest investment in boosting our hiring, and while it's still not adequate, within a relatively short amount of time, we saw the results, to my mind, that which were pretty satisfactory when we look at money we've put toward hiring and retention in other areas of the city. We put a relatively small amount of money and saw a pretty good result for the amount of money spent. So again, I just think there are ways that we can address some of the challenges we're facing. I think the private market is seeing some of those same challenges, as I mentioned earlier. I don't think in the long run this is going to save us either our general fund money, and I don't think it's going to save the average consumer money, because how could it, right? Where you're talking about either operating this service at a profit margin or not. And to my mind, in the long run, I do have real deep concerns at our ability to bring this back and move to a fully publicly run consolidated model. I do think that that's where we need to go from an environmental perspective, from a union perspective, from a consumer and taxpayer perspective. So regardless of how the vote goes tonight, that's going to be my focus moving forward, and appreciate you all letting me tune in quick here. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized? Yep, Councilor Schachter.
Thank you, President Travers, and thank you. I just want to echo, I'm going to keep it really brief. Words of gratitude to the DPW team, to our employees, to the administration, who I know have been really working to think very creatively for many months about how we sustain our program and how we continue to make sure that Burlington residents have city-provided recycling services. I'm a yes for a couple reasons tonight. One is that I don't disagree with a lot of the hesitation and the concerns and the folks who are voting no. In my mind, I think in the same way that you can argue that keeping it in-house sets us up for higher likelihood of a future city-run consolidated waste system, I think you can argue the opposite. I see the opposite as well, that if we don't take this minute to regroup, get our feet under us, have some resources to do the study well, that we would be looking at a future where we do not have the bandwidth to even consider a city-run consolidated waste system. So I do think this is a gamble. I'm really comfortable with where the resolution has landed, that we have this clear mandate to not be closing the door on a future city-run system. I know that a consolidated system will require a tremendous amount of upfront investments, whether we keep recycling in-house or not. It'll need new facilities, new equipment, and I think that's going to be the case no matter what. And so I really see the logic here for pursuing this, and something that has really stood with me is Councilor Newbeezer and I share a constituent who has been needing a portion of their sidewalk replaced since 2020 and maybe even earlier, because they have physical limitations and it's been very challenging for them. And I'm so grateful it's on the city's fiscal year 27 list, but it's taken a very, very long time. And I'm so hyper aware of how our resources are being diverted and prioritized, and that I think we have some really important basic infrastructure needs not being met as a city right now. And I'm hopeful that if we contract this out for the moment, that we can get caught up on some of the other very basic services that we need to be providing our residents, and just knowing how stretched thin we've been. The other thing I just want to name is that, yes, we are the biggest city in Vermont, but we are not a particularly large city. And so sometimes running these services ourselves doesn't necessarily mean we can do it for cheaper, because we don't have a lot of scale relative to huge haulers who reach a lot more households. So while I absolutely know how important it is that we explore keeping it in-house, there's real benefits. I don't deny any of that. I think that taking this moment, doing this work, continuing to leverage the power that we do have to negotiate favorable contracts for our citizens, All of that's important, but for very practical reasons and acknowledging a lot of the nuance and the complexity here, and really also wanting to defer to the experts in the room, the folks who live this day in and day out, have been doing this work and have been very clear in the challenges they've faced and where they stand on this, and I want to really honor and hold that. That's what brings me to a yes tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schachter. Councillor Singh?
I'll be very brief. You guys have spent a lot of time on this, and I'm very grateful for your leadership. I'm grateful to the union to bringing this forward. I just want to say, we say in the private sector, employees bring something to management, manager brings it to the board. Oftentimes, people are like, why doesn't the board listen to the employees, the rank and file? And I think this is a case, we have to act accordingly and listen to the rank and file. I also want to say, I think a lot of Burlingtonians might feel some efficiencies with this happening, where a private hauler is going to do recycling. Some people are going to get their trash and recycling picked up the same day by the same provider, which has environmental benefits. And for something like this, and just the basic economics of operation that requires a lot of capital up front, that's high fixed cost, low variable cost type of work, requires you to have many, many, many customers to recoup those fixed costs. So you have to go out and do X amount more to cover those fixed costs plus your variable costs. So the scale, we can see it's not here in this city. If we go to Consolidated, I'm hoping this is a countywide thing, that maybe other cities go to Consolidated, and how we do that. I think that bodes well for our future, that we're examining it, and hopefully other towns will take this study, and maybe there's something that could be done countywide. So appreciate your hard work, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Is there any councillor that has not been recognized that wishes to be? Okay, then I think we will go to a vote on the item. The clerk will please call the roll on the motion made by Councillor Barlow, seconded by Councillor Bergman.
Councillor Barlow?
Yes.
Councillor Bergman?
Yes.
Councillor Broderick?
No.
Councillor Carpenter?
Yes.
Councillor Grant?
Yes.
Councillor Kane?
No.
Councillor Litwin?
Yes.
Councillor McKnight?
No.
Councillor Newbeezer?
No.
Councillor Schachter?
Yes.
Councillor Singh?
Yes.
City Council President Travers?
Yes.
8 ayes, 4 nays.
With 8 yeses and 4 noes, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. That brings us now to our last deliberative item. This was on our consent agenda. It's our standard accountability list. It was moved on to our deliberative agenda at the request of Councillor Schachter. Councillor Schachter, I'd be happy to turn the floor to you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, President Travers. This will be really quick. I just wanted to we're entering, I think, the last quarter of the year. We have one more meeting before we're in the last quarter of this fiscal year. So I thought it was potentially a good opportunity to just take a quick look at the accountability list, knowing it was a lighter agenda as well, and see if there are items worthy of discussion or flagging. And I had one item in particular that I just wanted to flag publicly that recently emerged as the top priority in our recent Ward 1 NPA meeting is the MOU conversation with the university, and knowing that we passed the resolution in August welcoming Dr. Trump to our city, and seeking an update on the where things stand on our shared priorities around housing and safety for students. So I just wanted to name, I know, Mayor, that you've done a lot of work on that so far. As we're entering the back half and approaching June 30th, I just wanted to name my ongoing commitment to supporting that work in any way I can and honoring it's a top priority for Ward 1 residents. If there are any updates to share with council, that would be great. But also just wanted to open the floor if anyone else has anything to flag on the accountability list. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Is there any other councilor that wants to speak to this item? All right. Councilor Barlow.
Just to say that I think Bureau, the Building Emissions Reduction Ordinance, will be coming back to Tuke in probably the late spring timeframe.
Right. Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Seeing no one else wishing to speak to this item, Councilor Schachter, the recommended action on it was to waive the reading, accept the communication, and place it on file. Would you mind making that motion?
I make that motion. So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second?
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Again, is there anyone that wishes to speak to this item? Okay, we will go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are any opposed? That is unanimous, and thanks as always to Lori Olberg for all of her work on keeping us accountable. Thank you, Lori. That is the end of our deliberative agenda. Item 6 was committee reports, which we've already completed, which brings us to item 7, City Council General City Affairs. Is there any councilor that wishes to be recognized on General City Affairs? Councilor Grant.
In the committee updates, I just want to mention in the Public Safety Committee, which will be March 26th. I believe that's correct. Yes, March 26th, we will have the State's Attorney, Sarah George, with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Any other councilor on General City Affairs? Councilor Schachter.
All right, I just have a quick announcement, is that there's going to be an amazing concert at the Flynn this Wednesday in 2 days called All the Rivers, a benefit for Vermont's immigrant community. It was the cover story of 7 Days last week. There was a big VPR piece on it. It is an ensemble of over 20 international musicians from 10 countries who now call Vermont home. It's a celebration of our immigrant community. All proceeds from the event will be supporting nonprofits doing really important work in this community, and I encourage you all. Tickets are selling fast, and it's going to be a great night. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Any other councilors on General City Affairs? All right. That takes us to item 8, which is City Council President, Council updates. I do not have any updates this evening, which brings us to item 9, adjournment. And seeing no other business before the council, absent any objection, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:24 p.m. Thank you all.